Oklahoma, they had 2-3 years to build, or 3 years to build and get ready for the SEC.
Yeah.
I think that when the announcement was made, a lot of this stuff was still in the crawling stages, the NIL, the transfer portal, how that was going to work, teams figuring out what was legal, what was not, how to operate. It's the very beginning stages. These things were just getting announced, right? And it was real snarky SEC fans, traditional, oh, yeah, come get you some of the big bad SEC. Come over here and play. You'll see what it's like, the physicality over here. Some big boys over here. This isn't Big 12 football. Well, how ironic. We're sitting here in 2024, the two teams going into the SEC, Texas coming off a playoff berth. Texas, as I've said, and I'll say it again, the first team in the history of time to be the defending champion of the conference that they're going to play in. Texas is defending Big 12 and SEC champions. That's never been done before in the same year. We did it. Went to T-Town and took that. And we're coming in with a top 3, I think, conservatively offensive line in America. A very physical football team. You got your nasty linebacker and Anthony Hill Jr. We're still very talented coming off the edge, especially. And I think, as I've said before, on the interior defensive line, like with the Nussmeier conversation, I just think it's unrealistic to think that you're going to repeat Heisman level production. So when I talk about the Texas Longhorns interior, it's like I don't think it's realistic. Although I think the ceiling is the same, it's unrealistic for me to just expect first round award-winning production on the interior D-line like we had with Sweat and Murphy last year. But that said, what if I told you in 2020 that we'd be walking into the conference and the Texas Longhorns would have one of the best offensive lines in the country. They'd be respected on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. And we'd be asking ourselves if LSU is going to have a humiliating run defense again. So I think it's hilarious that you gave us that time. And unfortunately for the SEC fans, we had time to build for the physicality and the body type that you need. You heard Sark and the coaching staff constantly talk about we need bigger humans to come into this program. We were getting SEC ready. You know, we went in year 1 and got humiliated in Arkansas because we couldn't match their physicality and the experience that they had on the line of scrimmage. We got overwhelmed, and we were overwhelmed by the SEC atmosphere. So you fast forward to year 3, we walk into T-Town and beat what ends up being the SEC champions by 10 points. Could have been worse. And now we're going into the conference as basically the second best odds to win the conference. And then even Oklahoma, 2020, lighting up the world offensively. First-round quarterback after first-round quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner after Heisman Trophy winner, but known as a very soft team. To Lincoln Riley goes running to the West Coast, doesn't want a part of the change. I think that played a huge factor in it, the SEC, and kind of what he thought at the time. I don't think he thought was realistic to take what he had built at Oklahoma in the SEC and succeed. Goes to USC, that is what it is. You bring in a defensive guy in BV, and regardless of the win totals and all that, the Oklahoma team is trying to build what is going to be known as a very physical culture and probably a defensive first type team. Not even projecting wins or anything like that, but just the mentality is different. So now you got Texas and OU going into the SEC just as SEC as anybody is SEC. What do you think about that? I just think it's a funny contrast from 2020 to now, and what teams thought, what Texas and Oklahoma were thought to be, to what they are now going into the big bad physical SEC.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because as you'd mentioned, you know, like both teams have been, you know, able to not only recruit at a high level on both sides of the football, but also develop their lines of scrimmage, right? Like Oklahoma's always been known for having a great offensive line. We have one of the best, if not the best coach in America in Bill. And we also, you know, from a defensive standpoint, we actually like, I think I was talking to somebody the other day, but when we were running speed deep at Alex Grinch and stuff, we had defensive linemen that were 275, very light in the ass, like didn't have a ton of weight on them. Now we have about maybe 6-7 rotational guys that are 300 plus. That's what you need to be able to compete in the SEC. You need to be able to have those big bodies in the line of scrimmage to not only have competitive depth, but also have good rotational depth to where there's not a drastic drop off, right? Like you need to be able to play smash mouth football at times, and you also need to be able to have the speed, and then on the back end with, you know, your linebackers and your secondary to accommodate with the speed we're going to be seeing in this conference as well.
Yeah, Tom Herman used to have 5 blocking tight ends and an H-back
Yes.
Like that's his fucking 11 personnel. That's what our teams looked like. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those things too where I'm like, okay, SEC ready. I used to always get, comments because Oklahoma being as good as we have been my whole lifetime, really going to these games where we, dominate the Big 12. We're systematically a team that was built to run through the Big 12. And then once we got to those championship level games where you're playing the Georgias, you're playing the Alabamas, you're playing the LSUs, we were physically outmatched. And also you just get you get 2-3 stops against a Lincoln Riley offense. You prepare enough to get a couple stops and out the gate, the teams jump up on you 21-0. Regardless of how talented you are on offense, you're playing catch up the whole
treading
time.
water.
And you're already drowning, right? You're already put in a bad situation. So now, like you said, I think we're as SEC ready as anybody because now you not only bring in what made Oklahoma great in the 2000s with Bill Snyder, Bob Stoops pedigree, and obviously Dabo pedigree with Brent Venables. You have coming from these three coaching trees, you have someone who understands what it's like to win at Oklahoma at a high level and also how to do it with defense. And also, we've never really had issues off